On this week's episode of The Necessary Entrepreneur, we welcome Kassandra and Courtney Pike from Fliptable Plus. Fliptable is a transformative mobile app enhancing the hiring experience for both employers and job seekers in the restaurant and hospitality industry. Fliptable allows businesses to take control with easy-to-use hiring, POS, and payment software. In this episode, Kassandra Courtney and I discuss problem-solving pain points in the restaurant industry, why these two chose the tech route versus opening a restaurant that's better than the competition, and pioneering in a small town. We also talk about identifying purpose, putting yourself in situations you aren't ready for, not having a plan, staying focused, and taking action. Hey, thanks for tuning in to The Necessary Entrepreneur. Be sure to like, share, and hit that subscribe button. And why don't you leave us a comment below, and we'll continue having great conversations with interesting people. I hope you love this one as much as I did. Thanks again. So welcome, Courtney and Cassie, but officially it's Kassandra. That sounds like big, mature, grown up, doing big things. So, ladies from Fliptable Plus, welcome to The Necessary Entrepreneur. I have a feeling that this conversation, because we just transitioned quick, I have a feeling that this conversation today is going to go from business, the foundations of why you created this company, into some personal stuff, some things that you all are sharing with me, the twin hood that you all share, right, which is a big part of your life, and everything around. I know you are both active from following your social media, so let's take the conversation where it needs to go. But I have from researching who you all are, the lives that you've lived, and then you starting this entrepreneurial journey back in 2019, I'm excited about, A, having you two on, but then B, having you share with us and making us smarter today. So welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes. I've been wanting to talk to you ladies for a long time. And one day we'll get you here to Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky in studio, but you're just too busy and too special to come visit me right now.
No. Gosh, no. You still owe us a restaurant tour. Remember that.
Oh.
Yeah.
So go back to 2009, and we'll jump all over the place here because I want to learn. I know the listeners are going to want to learn today about this journey that you've been on. And, I want to find out why it's necessary and why it's so important. And again, the origin story. So go back to 2019. Why did this Fliptable Plus company evolve and happen?
Fliptable Plus really evolved because of our empathy and industry knowledge in this space, right? And trying to understand the restaurant problem. And there's many of them, right? Growing up, we had family members that worked in the restaurant industry. Courtney and myself have both worked in the restaurant industry to help make ends meet, right? We're one of 4 children. Courtney and I are triplets and identical mirror twins with a fraternal triplet brother. And we had a brother who was 2 when the 3 of us came into the world. God bless our mother. And she worked very, very hard, right? So if you asked her today, what her greatest achievement in this world, and she'll still say having us, and she'll still say what is the greatest gift, and that's what mothers do, right? They brag about their children, which is all excellent. But she worked as an EMT at night, and when she wasn't doing EMT, she was managing a restaurant. And if you asked her, she'll also say, "I didn't just manage the restaurant. She did everything." And I think a lot of restaurateurs will tell you that they're a manager, but they might also bust tables. They might also be a bar back or a bartender. And I traveled around the country out of college, and I helped startups actually go to market with some of their business strategies. And I traveled quite frequently by myself, and I would sit down at a restaurant and I would hear this constant pain point of, I can't find help, or someone in the front of the house or back of the house didn't show up tonight. And so we're down a chef or we're down a bartender, and it happens to be the busiest night. And just being a natural problem solver, you know what I mean? And so literally one day I went back home to my my beautiful place in Vermont, and wrote down on a napkin, quite literally, kind of, you think about it, writing down the restaurant concept on a napkin, right? And I started kind of creating these wireframes of solutions out there today that I could recreate a solution for specific to the restaurant space. And so really that's when Fliptable started. And then today we are Fliptable Plus, and we can go into why we became and have transformed into Fliptable Plus. But that's really the origin, right? Is having that industry knowledge, growing up with parents and relatives that have that experience, and understanding that we can make something happen if we take the time to create it.
Why not start a restaurant? Your mom managed one. Why not start if you?
I'm a terrible cook. I could.
Oh, hold on, but you go find a good cook. Not right.
I'm a terrible cook.
She's a terrible cook.
But you could become a good one. Boy, we're going to go down some paths.
I can bake Courtney right under the table.
Okay. So, when most people have an idea like this, a lot of times what they do is they just start the same business and just do it better. Mm-hmm. So what happened that you went down this path on
like the tech route? Are you speaking towards
versus open a restaurant and do the restaurant business better?
Hands-on, yeah. So if you were to think of it in terms of starting a restaurant from scratch and starting a product like Fliptable from scratch, it would require much of the same thing, right? It would require you to take the time, the money, the economical factors, the personal resources. You're going to need to hire people. Where are you going to have that restaurant? Does it make sense to have that restaurant there? Is it going to survive? That same mentality that you have in needing to start an establishment is the same mentality that you need in starting a product like Fliptable. So to ask, Cassie, why not a restaurant versus a product like Fliptable? Well, I guess you know what you know, right? What feels right to her and to us. Starting a restaurant didn't feel right. To us, we wanted something that our generation and generations to come could really connect with. And I think that speaks a lot to both, her personality and mine. We wanted more of a challenge, even more of a challenge than that is required in having a restaurant, which is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm assuming the name, I'm going out on a limb here. An assumption means I could be wrong. I'm assuming you're flipping the way this is done on its head, the flip table.
So I'm a very, Courtney too, right? I'm not saying anything, but to speak for myself, I'm a very thoughtful person, right? And so when I was thinking about, now I have these wireframes on this napkin. Now what do I call it, right? It's kind of like having a baby, right? You're building something. What are we going to name it, right? And if you ask anybody, all my labs are all named after a thoughtful thing, right? It's not just I'm naming them, so-and-so. They all have a meaning behind why I chose their name. And the same thing goes for Fliptable. I chose the name Fliptable because it's a restaurant terminology. It's a term used when a restaurant is trying to flip a table to generate more revenue and be more successful. And so I was trying to think of a term that would build excitement in a community. And I think this particular term helps us build that community from a solution perspective.
What's going to be attractive? What's going to be relative? Those were the questions that we were asking ourselves.
Yeah. So why is this product? I'm thinking of all the business things I've had to do over all these couple decades here and all the entrepreneurial journeys and all the challenges. But what makes this product, Fliptable and then Fliptable Plus, what makes this product necessary in the restaurant space? What makes it necessary for people?
The community itself, right? There is no product on the market today, no solution, no platform that is building a restaurant-specific community. And that in and of itself, with our proprietary algorithms that beautifully match restaurants with restaurant talent.
Then why doesn't everybody use it yet?
How do you know not everybody is using it?
That's the question. Here we go, right?
We like to keep things spicy, you know.
We're very
just for those folks in Vermont, right?
Yeah.
Well, due to the cold, you have to
right?
turn.
Vermont is a beautiful place to build products, and I think when most people think of startup, right, Mark, they're thinking West Coast, California. Now Texas and Houston is becoming kind of
and Miami's starting to do some stuff.
Miami is becoming a great hub as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think honestly, I'm not talking negatively in any way, shape, or form of building the product in any one of those areas. I just think it's interesting how important where we've built this product has been for the actual product itself. And so Vermont has been a tremendous support for us and an excellent place to be able to build something this important and complex, right? And also being that this is where we were raised, right? And so I would love for people to understand that Vermont is an under-recognized state of talent.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could shout at the top of a mountaintop, right in Vermont, beautiful green
Here's
mountains.
our mountaintop today.
Green mountains. Yeah, I'm actually on quite literally a mountaintop today where I'm located. But I would say if you had an opportunity to look into investing in companies in Vermont, please do so, because there's a lot of underserved startups and entrepreneurs in this area, simply because people don't think of Vermont when it comes to making good investments and entrepreneurship talent, right?
Especially technology, right? We didn't come from Boston. We didn't come from Silicon Valley. The town that we grew up in was exorbitantly small relative to all the other talent that's coming up, through the pike. And so, if anything, I want Cassie, myself, and we speak of this often, is I want her and I to be the pioneers for women coming from small towns doing big things. And I want them to know that it doesn't matter where you come from. If you want something bad enough, you get after it. You take the risk.
What's the best way to do that? If you want to be that, right? What's the best way to do that?
You do. You just do it. You don't necessarily need a plan. Cassie and I, we had no idea what we were going to do. We just started. How are we going to do this? All right, well, we know it's going to be technology. We knew we wanted to be on the phone. So, okay, I guess we need a developer now. How are we going to get a developer? So we tapped into our network. Cassie's very good at tapping into our network. She got us a developer really quickly. We got to the MVP stage. So it's just doing, not being perfect, not necessarily knowing where the journey is going to take you, but just knowing that it's the who that's more important than the what.
So two questions off of this. So I like it, but what I try to do is, as we go through this and have conversations, I try not to ask questions that are going to agree with me. Even if I agree, you're not going to know. But so when you said, it's very interesting, when you said you don't need a plan, that's contradictory,
right?
To a lot of things that are taught today. So I want you to talk about that, because there's something that we can learn there. And then at the same time, a part of that is you talked about just doing, which is taking action. And so how do you go from idea? I'm in this world of business and now sitting on boards and around a lot of business people and around a lot of people who have ideas. There's a lot of idea people in this world. And then what I very rarely see is people taking the idea and putting it into action. They'll sit here and study and make a plan and regurgitate it. And it's like, hey, you just have to get busy. My point is, the plan is not going to work out regardless of the plan you make. So how did you take this idea? What made you take it from idea to actually take action on it? And then how can you succeed without a plan?
Mm-hmm. So I have my take. Cassie, you can go ahead and
I mean, Courtney's probably we'll have twinpathy throughout this conversation. We finish each other's thoughts and sentences quite a bit. You have to believe that what you have and are creating will make a difference. And even when no one else believes, even when the noise is so loud, it's keeping you from the continuing building of what you're trying to achieve, you've got to stay focused, you've got to stay on course, and you've got to believe. I mean, it's a term that we use in our family a lot. this word believe. And I think it comes down to, it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter your education, it doesn't matter your experience. If you believe in something deeply, you will see it through.
And just piggybacking off of what she stated too, Mark, we knew the pain point that we were trying to take on. Basically, one of the biggest challenges in the restaurant industry, we were wanting to take on, a dynamic duo. Again, going back to, we didn't know what we were getting into. We just knew we had a passion for it based off of our experience growing up, seeing our mother work so hard, multiple jobs, just trying to make ends meet, having 4 children. In the back of our minds, we were thinking, not only is this something that we can connect to that has a family tied to it, but it also is a challenge that we need to solve. Somebody needs to solve it. Nobody's solving it. So that's where we stepped in.
But it's hard, right? If you kind of knew the journey and the path a little bit on what it was going to take, did you, in 2009, from any past experience, did you understand what this entrepreneurial journey over the last 4 years, if we sat here for 6 hours on the podcast, it probably wouldn't be enough time to talk about all the experiences, all the trials and tribulations, all the things that didn't work and why you had to keep going. But did you know, for some reason, somebody in your family, past experience, did you know what it was going to take?
Coming from humble beginnings, Mark, rolling up your sleeves and taking on challenges and enduring the unknown was not necessarily something from a personal perspective that we didn't have experience with. So it was almost a natural, tackle type of environment for us to just understand that big things require big challenges, and more importantly, require people with big passion and big determination to get it done. And there is no product out there today that has the kind of passion and backing and skilled talent with the experience built for the restaurant industry that is specific for them. And this is just the beginning, Mark, right? What Fliptable offers today in terms of a hiring application, and addition to that is payments and hardware. Tomorrow is also going to be an HR, payroll, and digital wallet. Okay. And there's more, right? And so
Evolve
I think
or
this
die.
is just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to tackle big challenges, you need to think bigger than what even your best friends and your family will root and say about you.
Where did this idea about if believe is such an important word in your family, where'd that come from?
It comes from, generational, upbringing from our parents and their parents, and to us today, that you may not always have all the resources and you may not always have what you want, but you're going to get what you need. And I think it also comes from, again, this kind of idea that the word believe and belief itself brings this kind of energy and spirit to people that pushes them through.
So if I feel a quiet grit and fire from you two, and maybe you're thinking, hey, it's not quiet, but I feel it in there. There's a grit and a determination that comes out in words that people use, right? In phrases. And usually it shows up in taking responsibility, taking accountability, disciplined behavior. When you see those things that people are talking about, right, it shows through a fire, a determination, a grit, that you're not waiting for other people to come and save you and help you. You're taking action.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that come from, I'm seeing, I've never been to Vermont. I've been to, I think, 43 states, but Vermont's not one of them. And I'm assuming it's kind of a gritty, outdoors, backwoods type of state.
So Vermont is beautiful. It's dynamic. It's, it's quintessential. And I would say that you're right in the sense that there is a lot of grit and a lot of hustle in this state. And I think it comes from, again, the idea that not a lot of people think of Vermont as being a place of top talent and entrepreneurship. And this talk of this fire and this grit and spirit that we have, I think it also comes from the amazing community that this state brings, right? And if we could convey the type of humble community that the entire state of Vermont brings, then you would understand that it's more of the people that we have grown up with our whole life, right? The people being state of Vermont are also people that have come together because they have to, right? And because they can, because it's not a massive state like the state of California, right? And so I feel very blessed, again, to be in this location and building something that's going to change and revolutionize how not just the restaurant industry hires, Mark, but really reshape how most platforms out there are thinking about their hiring.
Is your ideal customer, is it a smaller one restaurant operation, two restaurant operation? I'm figuring that's the ideal customer.
So the Fliptable application serves all restaurants. We even have inns and hospitality type of establishments on there as well, because a lot of inns also have a tavern of some kind, right? However, our niche is really in the 1 to 5 location, right? Now, we do have multi-location 12 and up franchises on our platform as well. They're using it and they're very happy. However, we are seeing more of that niche SMB type of thing for restaurants.
Is it because you're helping them create efficiency that's just not easily achievable with 1, 2, or 3 locations? Is that really the big thing here? You're bringing it all to them where they just wouldn't be able to accomplish it.
Yes, and believe it or not, today people still want a face to the product, and it's a forgotten value that a lot of corporate companies don't take into consideration. And also, people want to feel like the person that is building this amazing product is someone that understands what they're building and who they're building it for. And that is exactly what we capitalize on.
Yeah, so you're talking about relationships, right?
Absolutely. It's
So speak to
an
that.
undervalued and
underutilized, right?
In the imagination when it comes to the business world.
Yeah, so
we
let's talk
want
about
a
that.
big product, but we want to keep a small town small, right?
Okay.
To summarize,
Yeah,
we're
that's
coming
tough.
from
That's tough to scale.
Yeah, exactly. We come from a very, very small town, but we have a big idea. And going back to how did this come into fruition? What did you guys do with it? We just knew that this is what we wanted to do, for one, but also it was so exciting to come from a small town and have this belief, this huge dream, that we really wanted to make something of it, of ourselves. Not to prove a point, not to be somebody that we're not, but to get outside of our comfort zone and tell ourselves that we can do this. We are women, we can do this. Look at the business statistics, male to female ratio. Not trying to play that game by any means, but it's true to fault. Females are not necessarily painted in this positive light when it comes to owning a company. And whether that's, a counterintuitive weakness that people have a connection to, whatever it may be, I don't know. But I know that, again, as being a female entrepreneur, I know that I do feel like there are obstacles that if we were male, we likely wouldn't stumble upon.
Do you think that, so I'm willing to dip my toes into any conversation, right? And so, because, in my personal life, I'm in a relationship with a very strong female.
Go you.
Very, very, very talented, very strong, very accomplished, higher educated than me, leadership roles. And I couldn't be with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so, me personally, as a 44-year-old leader, 10 years ahead of you two, I honestly don't, how I feel inside, I personally don't look at a difference between men and women and capabilities and what's possible. And I never felt like that growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so the tough thing for me is I'm not saying that those challenges aren't placed in front of you. But I think it's important for all the ladies out there, and here I am, a guy trying to give some advice and something, but it's so important to me, to not think about them, to not look at them, because my attitude is if you lay an obstacle in front of me, I'm going up it, through it, around it, over it, and there's going to be a lot of people that came before me that aren't going to want me to come and take their thing. Like if you grew up in a wealthy family, what you'll see a lot of times, and I'll bring this full circle, and I want you all to take it and give back and share and talk about this, but if you don't grow up in a wealthy families, what they do is they do a good job generation to generation teaching wealth. When you come from a family, I'm assuming where you guys came from, where I came from, my mom loved me. We were raised with these morals of how you treat other people and how you respect other humans. Not that we're perfect, but just there's fundamental ways and responsibilities on how we're supposed to do this life thing. But they didn't have the financial intelligence for all the great things they did. They didn't have that to transfer to me. And so I found the same thing in business. There aren't people in front of me, whether it's a male or a female or anyone, they're not going to line up to tell me exactly how to do it. Hey, let me tell you exactly how to come get this from me. Right. And so I hope, and without living your journey on being female entrepreneurs, I hope that regardless of what people lay in front of you and other people that are listening to this, that you just don't give it any thought.
It's a mindset. It really is.
Yes.
Because going into it, I was, you observe. You observe through experiences, you observe through the roles that you take on as an entrepreneur and as a founder, which are varying, constantly evolving. And it was just an observation I made, both through just listening to content and reading content. I'm an avid reader. And I sense this disparity. It's not something I support necessarily. It's just certainly
facts. Just what you see.
It's what you see, right? It's the face value. And I really, really.
So knock it down. If you see it and you all have seen, the hope is that if you said, because if you say, I said, hey, what's the best way to do it? Like to do and to show. See, I'm that way. If it comes to people's, not that we'll go there, but if it comes to people's like religion and politics and all that, I'm like, hey, quit trying to convince other people to come to your side. If you think it's so special and great, then live it.
Right.
Then live it.
Right. It's the trying, even though you may fail.
That's exactly the point too, Mark, is it's about just, I love how you said just, it doesn't exist, right?
Yep.
And I think that there's really two sides of that coin, because it does exist, but how, to Courtney's point, you create that mindset of, well, I'm going to overcome that, right? And and the way to overcome that is to try to create a mindset where I'm just going to focus on myself.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to build and the community that I'm building and my strength, my belief in something strong. Right.
Yeah. So maybe there's more. Maybe there's more examples of males that have come before us than females, right, to look up to. But I'll be honest, around my company, this is what I say to so many people. We have in my real estate company, have very successful females, very successful males, successful minorities outside of colors of skin and genders. And so, but I see just as many men struggle with the characteristics and the aspects that are necessary to win in business that they don't have. I do. And so maybe it would be easier for them because more men have come before them and they've been in business and they've highly succeeded. But when it comes to self-esteem and confidence and those types of things and belief in yourself, I'm not this guy who's out here talking about masculinity and all that, but I see it daily. There's men walking around my company that don't believe in themselves at the same level women do. And I just think if you ignore it, I'm not saying that if bad things happen to you that you don't talk about it, but what is paying a lot of attention to anything that's laying in front of you going to help us or going to do to help move you forward? I don't think a lot. So I'm not saying it's not realities, it is, but I look at people, I say in my sales meetings all the time, people like Oprah Winfrey and the things that she's achieved, right? Sarah Blakely on what she's done with Spanx. I mean, there's highly successful women these days in the world of entrepreneurship.
Highly successful meaning, and there's the definition of success, right?
What is that? Yeah.
Are you, woman making 40 under 40, right? There's that type of success. And then there's the type of success, which I call more of the grassroots, where you start from nothing and you make something out of it. If, one of my greatest achievements will be that I leave an impact in this world behind, starting from where I grew up in this town of Vermont. And that this impact that I have in the restaurant community is something that is built upon. We have competitors talk to us, knock on our door every day, and I'm not scared of it. Bring it.
There you go.
Please knock on my door. In fact, I welcome a conversation, because at the end of the day, I want this product to scale. What a pat on the back, right? And I think that's also something that as entrepreneurs, I want people to think about critically, is don't be afraid to have discussions with people who are your competition. And if you are a competitor,
better than you. Yeah.
Well, and if you are a competitor, welcome these tough discussions, because these tough discussions are what lead to amazing breakthroughs. We will never create amazing products that create amazing solutions that help people across our world if we're not willing to have those tough discussions. And we have to have them with people who challenge us, Mark, to your point.
Yeah.
If everybody in the room agrees with you, that's not a strong room. Right?
Where did this confidence that come from you two? Because this is something.
My oatmeal.
Oatmeal.
I have a story to that too. I have a story actually for the confidence piece, and also give you a better idea as to the personalities between Cassie and myself. So in middle school, I don't know if you had to do it. It seems to be like a lay of the land in middle school. We had to put on a play for Hamlet, and I can't remember exactly, but to try out for the differing roles, we had to read aloud in class. And I remember Cassie being like, I'm going to be queen. I'm going to be queen. And I didn't care what role I got, because at the end of the day, the teacher decided upon what role we would be in. We ended up, the teacher ended up deciding what role we would get. Cassie obviously got queen. I actually got the narrator position. And I was just shocked, because you think of the narrator as not having really any role in the play, but actually I had to set the scene. And before every scene began on stage, the theater would go completely black and the spotlight would be on me, only me. And I had to speak to in front of hundreds of people. I couldn't see the crowd. I just had to assume that they were all hopefully not looking at me, but it's a completely different experience. Point being is, Cassie knew exactly that she wanted to be this big role of being a queen. I necessarily didn't want to be a narrator because it's completely out of my comfort zone, but I knew that I couldn't act. I knew I could read and set the scene. And so part of my story, going back to what is your story, what brings you here, is I naturally I do well with setting a scene. And now, being an entrepreneur, I'm a part of it all. I'm on stage. I'm in the light. I'm in the crowd. I have to observe.
Where's this natural confidence come from the queen then?
I told you, my oatmeal. No. So,
are you going to tell us a story about like chopping down wood in the backyard at 7 years old with the axe over your shoulder with snowshoes walking up the mountain? Is that going to work?
Yeah,
right. So it actually started from walking uphill with no shoes and in the rain with no umbrella. But no, it really comes from, Mark, a blessing. I'm going to chalk it down to a blessing, because if you ask my mother to tell a story about me, she'll say things like, whenever your brothers were opening the door in the middle of winter, you'd say, we're not heating the outdoors, right? Or something like, I recall her saying that I didn't want to get into a relationship. I was, 10, 11 years old. A little bit ahead of myself in terms of how I articulated things. But I would say, I don't want to get into a relationship unless I have a job first, right? And I think that was because I like taking care of people. I like, again, ties into the hospitality space really well. And I also like to know that I feel like I'm a good leader in the sense that I'm leading from really more of a servant type of angle versus I have to take over or I want control. And I love it when people trust me. Trust in really instills that confidence. And again, I think it ties well into building the talent that we have within our company today. I will tell everyone that comes on board, new and existing, I'll remind them, we have to trust each other, right? And by having that kind of trust, you really end up building not just yourself, but you end up building everybody around you. And I think, again, from a young age, with Courtney's help, of course, right? I was able to just naturally have people gravitate around me because of that. If there was something to be said, I came up with a way to say it, whether it was good or bad, without necessarily hurting someone's feelings, but not taking sides either, but just getting it out there. Pioneering, I think, is one way I do that. You know, I don't wait for someone to tell me if it's okay to do something or not. I've got a good compass. Courtney and I were both raised by tremendously strong parents from tremendously challenging backgrounds. And that is not something we hide. That is something we promote because we're proud of that. I am very proud of the woman that I am today. I'm very proud of the things that I'm building today. And what anyone else thinks is none of my business.
There you go. Yeah. See, those things are easy to say, but if you fundamentally believe it and you wake up knowing that, hey, what people feel about me is none of my business. Right? Now, I don't think we want to take it to the level of, we've all said those things like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. It's like, well, we do.
You kind of have
we
to.
Do. Yeah. And in business, you better frame and sell something. Right? Oh, yeah. You're probably not going to be the same exact person at 9:00 on a snowy night if you're having a glass of wine and TV on versus trying to sell that person at 1:00 in that sales meeting. Right? But I think you're going to be who you are. Right? I'm going to be who I am. And I'm not going to apologize for that because I'm the only person. Yeah, you're going to surround yourself with a good team, but you two were the ideators. You were the creators of this thing. And then you've sold the culture. You're selling the idea consistently to employees and to consumers. And so you're not going to apologize for that. If that ruffles people's feathers or if they're threatened by it, then their opinion of you, their opinion of me, it's none of my business.
That's a them problem, I always like to say. That's a them problem.
Yeah. We have to be careful not to be so arrogant and egotistical, though, right? To say, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. Yeah. That's a defense mechanism when that rises
you have
up.
to keep it in the back of your mind, for sure. Yeah.
Psychologically, humans want to be accepted.
Yeah.
They want to know that there's somebody out there that cares enough, right? Yeah. And so by all means, right, please tell me what opinion you have because your opinion matters and it's valid. Your feelings are valid. But at the end of the day, again, going back to if you are centered and you know yourself, right? This goes back to what Courtney was saying earlier. You have to understand yourself really well to be able to have the strength to filter out what matters and what doesn't. And listen, I'm not perfect at filtering out what matters and what doesn't. Sometimes things sting, right? Like when we get a no from an investor, for example. Right now, I'm heavily focused on raising capital for Fliptable, right?
The toughest thing that you all have gone through in 4 years, you're embarking on it right now.
Absolutely the toughest thing.
Yep.
The toughest thing because when you believe in something so strongly, you need to somehow come up with a way to convey that from a revenue perspective and a growth perspective to an investor. And really, to me, Mark, there's different kinds of investors. There's investors that are strategic, and there's investors that are more of like the angel investors. They take the approach from the human. I'm investing in the jockey, and then there's investors that invest in the horse. At the end of the day, to give an example, when you're making a bet at the racetrack, right, at the horse racetrack, what you're really betting on is the jockey. And people forget that. And some investors forget that. And while raising capital for our company, I think it's important, and this is an interesting topic to discuss, if you'll enlighten me, for us to be able to be picky, even when what we're trying to do is a necessity, right? Even when raising capital is a necessity for our company, because the people you bring to the table, the people you bring into your company, whether they're writing a check or they're your accountant or they're preparing your taxes, is so important. And these are things that I have learned now, today, but that early on, I didn't know.
Yeah, let me take a stab at this on the part you didn't know. You actually thought people lived up to the things they said. You actually thought people were people of their word. You actually thought people meant when they committed to something, you thought they meant it. No. They only mean those things until they perceive it doesn't benefit them anymore. And then they will cast you aside. So the most important thing, what I've learned about investors, and there's people way more highly successful than I've become. If you listen to the Mark Cubans of the world, the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world, what they realized through making bad investments, they said that they realized that they just need to invest in the person. And so just so you know, when you're out there raising funds, it doesn't matter the idea, because any person that's traveled this path of entrepreneurship, they know whatever plan they came up with on their business, it's not going to go to plan. You got to invest in a person who has resilience, who has commitment, who has a passion behind their thing that's going to stick with it through the multiple iterations and evolutions of the business. So as long as you can sell them on you the human being, what you're fortified by, what your future passion. And so what they have to believe, what these investors have to believe, I'm going to go to the thing about picking them. What the investors have to believe is that you're one of the very few unique human beings that just don't quit. Because there's not many of those. And that's what they'll invest in. Anytime an investment goes bad, it's because we either quit in what we invested in or the person that we invested in quit. That's it. That's it. Everything in my life, if I just kept going, it ends up, whatever it is, works out. So, and then trying to pick your investors, picking your accountants and stuff, I mean, that's the school of hard knocks of business. That's really difficult. And when you're in a spot where you need money, that's when it's toughest to find. When you don't need it, man, they'll throw it at you. They'll throw it at you at a better interest rate than you could have ever dreamed. And so because what they're doing is they're buying late. You're trying to get people to buy early, right? And for you not to have to give away the whole farm.
Right.
For not to have to give away too much equity.
Absolutely.
So you're on Shark Tank every day of your life in front of these people, and you're almost there begging, and they're sitting up on a throne and just trying to dictate. So I know what you're going through. And what you have to do is just get them to believe in you. And if they believe in you, that you're this unique group, you all have things to offer that are unique. Yeah, you're from Vermont. That's kind of cool. Made me listen a little bit. It's like, all right, well, they think Vermont's special. Make me believe. Right. And then you have this unique thing about that you're identical twins. That's a unique thing. That would be interesting for somebody that would invest. It's like, probably never invested in a business that was started by twins or identical twins. Wonder how that could benefit me. Wonder how that ROI could look. So you need to perk people's ears and their minds about what makes you special. That's what you have to do.
And we've been successful doing that. Yeah. And it's interesting. The reason I bring this up is it's interesting that there are entrepreneurs out there. I'm saying this kind of as a public announcement because I really want people out there that want to start a company. They want to start something big, and maybe they've heard from many people that this big thing that they want to tackle is unachievable. And I think that there's a difference between impossible and probable. Okay. And we don't use the word impossible. Okay. And and I don't want anyone out there listening to think that if I follow my dream that I'm passionate about, that's not okay. Along the way, we have heard people tell us, don't follow your passion. That doesn't generate money. I cannot tell you how wrong that is.
This is going to be good. This is going to be good. And I'm interrupting you because I want you to push back on it because I'm going to push on that some. and go all the way on this conversation, because we'll work this out, because I'm going to push back on the passion thing a little bit. I am. So go there and convince me, and I'm going to hit back on it.
Okay. One of the things my father used to tell us as young kids is follow happiness and money will follow. Okay. And, you know, as I grew up and took on different varying roles, especially in the restaurant industry, I was like, I don't know if my dad was right. You know what I mean? Like, all of these things make me happy, but, you know, I got to pay my car registration. I got to pay for my college books, you know? And so I explored opportunities where I made a lot of money. Okay. And I was happy to an extent. And what I mean by that is money did buy me that car. You know, money did buy me that piece of property, whatever it is, just put it in perspective. Money bought awesome gifts for my family. Money put me in a position where I could provide, and that's what made me happy. But there are so many aspects of having that access that also, in a lot of ways, left me with some voids, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I mean by, and you're challenging me, and I love it.
Yeah. This passion thing. Yeah, go deep into it.
And so what I mean by that is,
yeah,
I wanted to be, you asked my mother, she asked me what I wanted to be when I was like 6 years old. I said, I want to be a doctor. Okay. And then I quickly found out, I really don't like the white walls and white lights everywhere. It's not, I don't know. It doesn't excite me. It's
not creative enough. It's not something. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I wanted to be an architect. Why? Because I love designing and building things out, right? And I realized, you know what? I'm better at keeping my finances than I am with a calculator doing X, Y, and Z measurements, right? And then suddenly it's funny because going back to you don't need a plan. I had planned my entire life out, I swear, as soon as I left my mom. Okay. And nothing about that plan is true today other than I stayed true to myself and I followed what I believed in and what I was passionate about. But I had written out in my mind, I had written out exactly who I wanted to be, exactly how I was going to get there. And there were so many different paths that I took to where I am today, because at the end of the day, I followed what made me happy, and what made me happy was what I was passionate about.
All right. So that's a big statement, that what made you happy you were passionate about. I'm going to share I'm going to try to break it down here. All right. 19 years of entrepreneurial journey, and even started younger, cutting grass and doing all types of things, right? Little landscaping stuff, that blue collar life I was growing up. But 19 years ago, I wasn't on a path to start a real estate company. It just happened. The real estate company that I was working at, where I had my real estate license, they're just something that happened. They just didn't treat me well, which was stupid because I was a high performer, young gun, just rolling. They just tried to dictate to me something that I didn't want to be dictated to. And I said, nope, it's not going to go down that way. It was significant. It's not just a thought or a feeling or got treated bad. I'm like, I'm going to have to. So I had to start a company for me to have the company I wanted to work at. I didn't have a big business plan. There's no how to become a millionaire. I'm going to hire all these people. I just wanted to start the company I wanted to work at. And then 2007 and 2008 came, the housing crisis. And I was doing very well. And all of a sudden, boy, you're talking about the school of hard knocks and learning some lessons. Over the next 5 to 6 years of my life, from 2007, 2008, all the way up to about 2011, 2012, 13, 14, where I started to see, I can actually make it. It's not just, let me find $1 a day to pay $1 in bills tomorrow to survive. Those 5 to 6 years, I'm going to be honest, they were not fun. I wasn't happy. I have a good heart. I have a good soul. I treat people well, but I was not happy. And I'll be real too. I didn't identify the passion. It was survival. And that survival was like, I don't want to go back to the old ways of being an employee and being dictated to. I've gone out on this path and I've learned enough in life, like, don't quit. My passion didn't evolve about helping other people change their lives and let me show them how to do the same thing I've done, and you can do it no matter where you came from. It's the same story that you guys are sharing here. I didn't identify that purpose until probably 2014, 15, 16 on really what's possible and how I can help people. And so still then, from 2016 till now, 2023, going into 2024, there's many days that aren't filled with happiness. This is my experience. And maybe it's because the purpose wasn't to have a real estate company and be a realtor. Now I've found purpose now, the difference I can make in people's lives. But I think the better way I put it is I try to find a little bit of joy in all the craziness of this entrepreneurial journey every day. So the purpose of my life wasn't to be a real estate agent. It's just the thing I use to make a difference now. So I think, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you think, you say you couldn't really, the passion or the purpose wasn't really there to start because you were in this survival mode. So when I think about, first I can resonate with that because it's really hard to be able to be in the moment and have that passion, exclaim that passion when you're in fight or flight all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, question I have for you is, do you think your passion and purpose was being silenced by your necessity to survive as an entrepreneur?
It could have been. I just couldn't have identified it then. Just being completely transparent, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think I just wasn't going to quit in this grit and determination, tenacity. The reason, here's why I push back on it. Because if you're waiting to take action until you realize your passion, if you're going to wait to take action until you can identify the purpose, there's a lot of people aren't going to start. And it's so easy for the big people that I have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for a guy like Richard Branson and some of these, what people have achieved. I'm not saying them personally, but like even Bill Gates. There's these people that have built these tremendous businesses. So I have massive respect for them professionally and entrepreneurially. And even Warren Buffett at times, they'd sit back and say, well, if you do something you're passionate about every day and you're happy, you're not going to feel like you have to work a day in your life. I just don't look around and see the business community around me. I don't look around and just see those people smiling and happy every day. It's really hard. Right.
There's happiness and then there's passion, right? So how do you differentiate between the two?
Yeah, I think that
what's your driver?
Yeah, I don't think I have this passionate thing. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of a conversation a lot of places, but my passion isn't to go out into show houses and to sell homes. My passion isn't, I've rehabbed, I've flipped a bunch of beautiful homes, I'll design them myself. That's not my passion. I found out like really helping people evolve and live a better life is a good passion. It's a good purpose to help them believe in themselves that they actually can do more than anybody else around them, showing them that they could. And so I could do that with any business. I could own a franchise of a business. I could do it with a real estate company. I could do it with, if I was a medical doctor and creating a medical practice. And so I just think so many people are sitting back waiting for the thing that really gives them passion, the idea, the business, and they're waiting to take action. And so you ladies have found it. You're doing this thing. But so often people are waiting to get started. And I just want to make sure that that's the message. Like, hey, you got to get started before you.
No, absolutely. So what I mean by that, right, is you never know when that moment's going to come, Mark. You never know what either, right? Mm-hmm. Like you didn't know that you were going to get involved in real estate.
Nope.
Right. And then you did. You didn't know.
Not until I was 25. See what I'm saying? Not until I was 25.
You didn't know, half a decade ago that you would create this amazing podcast where people would come together and help each other be successful and create an amazing support cohort. You didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm not saying that you have to know what that is, but what I am saying is when you do, you will know it. And I urge people to follow it.
There you go. That's good. Okay? That's good advice, right? That's good advice. I think once you see it, right, whatever that thing, once the passion, the purpose shows up, just don't wait to take action before that, because I think there's no doubt every what you're dealing with right now, it started off with the conversation of raising money, right? The issue with business and entrepreneurship, the reason why these characteristics, and that's what I want to know from you, like what characteristics were essential to get you here. These things that people talk about grit and hustle and determination and perseverance, I don't care if they're not popular in culture today. They're essential if you want to do this. If you think you're going to start a business and you're going to be an entrepreneur and you don't have to have those things, you're wrong. I guess it's okay. How I was raised around a bunch of employees, and that's great, right? In the service field, a brother who was a firefighter, a mom who was a nurse. And so this world needs people who want to do those great things. But the reality is what they get to do from 9 to 5 or what they get to do second shift or working 10 to 12, they just have to focus on executing that thing and doing that thing better today. If you're on an assembly line, great. Put money into a retirement, build your life right, be passionate about it. But you just have to be great at that. And you're relying on managers and owners and VPs and people at different positions to fix the problems. Mm-hmm. So I can understand how people who haven't been on this business and entrepreneurial journey, I can understand how those words are like, no, I don't want to have to do that. Well, if you're going to do this, you better have them.
You bring up so many good points that we've experienced in our journey together. And it's interesting because our friends, right? There are many of our friends that are like, you guys are crazy. Mm-hmm. How do you not do the 9 to 5 and do the certainty kind of life where everything is just kind of guaranteed and mapped out? You mentioned things like 401ks and, dental and benefits and all these sort of things. You guys are in your early 30s. Like, these things are really important. You need to be focusing on them. We are. Again, going back to nothing is impossible, more probable, right? And it's about, you can do all those things as an entrepreneur. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I'm an entrepreneur, and if I'm an entrepreneur, I don't have a 9 to 5, then I can't access a 401k plan. I can't plan for retirement. I can't have, benefits and all these sort of things. Understand that that's not true. There are resources out there for people to be able to have access to those things individually. And you don't necessarily have to be putting in large chunks, but everything adds up. And I'm here to tell you that you will get to a point when you can put large chunks in, but you have to stick with it, right? But there are resources out there for the non-9 to 5 people, the entrepreneurs, the people that are willing to hustle and grit. Not saying a 9 to 5er doesn't, but it is a different blood that runs through you. It is a different mentality. I've lost friends, along the way, because when we went out on vacations together, it's, why is your phone up? Why is your computer up? Why are you taking that call? Right? In line at an airport, what are you doing? You need to focus, right? Those sort of things. And not understanding that you need, when you're trying to make an impact in this world, right? That there are certain sacrifices that you have to make for that time period and in that moment that either people are going to support you on, and they're not.
And most won't.
I say this to my team quite a bit. If people are not going to get on the bus, that's okay. This bus makes many stops. Okay? And we have plenty of opportunities to pick up another person. And I'm not trying to say that the relationships that I've established in my life were not meaningful for me in that moment, in that time. But the right people stayed on the bus, right?
Yeah, you don't have to make apologies for that. I heard Tyler Perry, this is a new one. He makes these great metaphors and analogies. He made one about an analogy of people in your life being the parts of a tree. Go out and listen to that one. I'm not saying here, everybody who listens, go out and find it. You can put it on Instagram, and he talks about the leaves, and then he talks about there's very few people who form the roots in all of our lives. We're talking about entrepreneurship today, but that's friendships. That's people you go through life, the people that are there for the good times and the bad times. There are not very many people in life that form the roots for us. There's not.
And if you find those roots, you better water them. Take care of them.
And go deep. Yep. And it goes back to relationships, how important they are. So I think the necessary part of business and entrepreneurship, it's relationship. Going back to relationships, every part of my success I can identify and tie back to relationships with folks, but some come and some go. Some are my fault, some are their faults, right? We all share in that. Sometimes I didn't pay enough attention to it. Sometimes they didn't pay enough attention to it. But at the end of the day, if they're one of those rooted folks, boy, they're in it with you through night and day. What I have found is you can live an extraordinary life after a decade, after 2 decades, after 3 decades. If you really become roots for other people, or you allow those people to become that for you, you can transform and change each other's lives in such a significant way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's nothing wrong with friends coming and going. I've had it happen to me. We grow, we evolve, we change. Some's for good, some's for bad. Because if we're a product of the 5 people that we're around, if you want to go to a different place and live a different life and become a different person, because if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you're going to have to become a different person than you are now. I had to.
Mm-hmm.
And if those other people in my life that are around me that I'm spending a lot of time with, if they're not growing with me, hey, listen, it might be my fault. I might be the jerk who's trying to achieve big things in life, but I am, and I'm going.
Yeah. Right.
And if we,
I'm glad you bring that up too, because you do, the person, and Cassie, I won't speak for you, but I'll speak for myself here. The person that I am today is not the person I was when we first began this journey. My confidence has skyrocketed, not because it's through experience. I've had to mold myself into this individual whom has to independently learn A, B, and C to do X, Y, and Z. As I've had to push myself into positions outside of my comfort zone and radically transform into an individual who's not only capable, confident, but that also illuminates within our team and our organization. You have
100%, guys.
You have to, I don't know if putting on a face is the correct terminology or not, but you really do. You have to, in a way, you have to fake it till you make it, until you become who you want to become. But you're always becoming.
Yeah. Yeah. If we want a different life, and listen, every part of being an entrepreneur, you want something different. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's success, sometimes it's freedom. It's all these things. And sometimes you just want to feel you're significantly accomplished. And I did something the world told me I couldn't do. And if you want to be that, you're going to have to change.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to become. It is. And if you're going to change, it means you fundamentally have to put yourself in situations that you aren't ready for, that you aren't comfortable with, that you don't know how. And that's when the determination, the grit, and the persistence pays off. And everybody around you that liked you, they're not going to like the new you because you're different. You talk different. You confront them differently. You counter them differently. You're not okay with the small talk the same way. Your brain is going to operate differently, and it's just not going to be comfortable. And you have to be willing to go through this journey and have people come and go. And they have to understand, everybody has to understand, they need to respect your space. They need to allow you become the person that you need to become. And if they care about you and they love you, they'll let you.
And that's been that's been a struggle. I know for myself has been to understand that it's selflessness. It's not being selfish. People will say to me, you're not the Courtney I used to know. And
good.
The old me, right. The old me would have been offended by that. But the me today is like, well, that was the point.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't get invited back to where you went to high school to speak to 200 or 300 graduates by being the person that graduated there.
It's so funny that you bring that up. That is so that is absolutely correct, right? You have to be somebody that is capable of growth, and that's
unrecognizable.
It's absolutely. And one of the things that I absolutely enjoy about this journey is just that phone call from, an old high school student, which we have, or a high school teacher, which we have gotten, saying, hey, would you come speak in front of, the entire student body and talk about your experience?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And absolutely. Right. Or, there's this dream program locally in Vermont that a very good teacher kind of transferred over into this kind of new role. And same thing. Can you come talk to these young adults and tell them about how your journey has become, and help inspire them.
Mm-hmm.
Those sort of things. Again, if you were an Oprah Winfrey, you might go, well, I talk to stadiums, right? Or you're an
They just
Elon
get invited
Musk.
to Harvard. They get invited to Harvard and Yale. We get invited to our high school, but it's the same reason.
Right. And you know what?
It serves a purpose. The purpose,
right.
the meaning behind it doesn't change.
Right. And to my point, though, you got to start somewhere, right? And I remember very early on, Mark, Fliptable got invited to talk on CNN. Okay. And I turned it down. And most people say, well, what are you thinking? That's CNN. You can be, your beautiful face can be up there on the TV, and you can say to all your friends and family, look at me, look at me, look at me. I did it. Right. It wasn't about that, though. I knew that we weren't ready. We weren't there yet. And when I say very early on, I mean 3 to 6 months. We were still MVP. Right. And I remember getting the phone call from the woman who was setting the appointment and creating this opportunity. And I hope she doesn't take offense to this. If she's listening, I'm here to say, I hope you didn't take offense to this, because when she said who she was, I didn't know who she was. Right. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm not very well educated and that I'm not very well observant in what's out there in our world and educate myself in that regard. It's just, I was so busy trying to build something that was so infant that I'm sorry that I didn't necessarily recognize it. But what I'm trying to say is it's okay to also turn down opportunities if you know in your gut, I'm saying gut, that maybe something's not necessarily there yet, right? And this goes back to how right now when we're raising capital, there have been many amazing conversations that we've had with potential investors and really key stakeholders. And in my gut, I'm going to be transparent and honest with myself. If we're not there yet, if this isn't something that I know is going to set us up for success, I'm not going to do it. Don't set yourself up to fail. And how do you do that? To be honest with yourself and say, okay, I'm not there yet. There's something else that I want to tackle, right?
But what is failure, though?
It's necessary to your journey. And failure, the way I'm defining it, is understanding that it's absolutely a part of who you are and what you do and who you become. Anyone out there that said they never failed scare me. Those people scare me. They scare me because I don't believe in this life, regardless of business. I don't believe in this life that you get to where you are without failure.
Yeah, if I ever see that person, I'm just going to shake their hand and say, it's really nice to meet you, because I've never met anybody like you.
Right.
And I can't connect with you. I can't comprehend what you know. So
maybe there's something to learn.
It's
right?
the same,
yeah.
Right. And it's the same thing that can be said when people require perfection, right? Perfection is not a part of success. Perfection, to me, puts people in a box and doesn't allow them to really explore, grow, and build, right? And so I use this term, fail forward. It is not a term I coined, but it's a term that I say to the team and to people that I meet. Failing forward means it's a part of your journey. It's a part of the process, but also you're learning and you're growing at the same time, right? We would not be where we are today as women, leaders, business owners, friends, comrades, if we did not fail forward.
What's that mean, failing forward? Because Denzel Washington talks about some. He has some great statements, and he's given some awesome speeches. So he said, hey, listen, if you're going to fall forward, don't fall back. Because if I'm going to fall forward, at least I see where I'm falling and I can keep going. And so if we want to fail forward, what's that mean, fail forward? Because to most people, failure feels the same.
It means not getting offended by not doing something correctly. Making mistakes is not only part of life, but it's necessary. And failure only has a negative connotation to it if you allow it. But it can definitely be more of a driver than an impediment if you just onward, right? If you keep moving, learn from those mistakes, learn from, okay, if this didn't work and we failed, that's okay. What did we learn from this? Let's improve upon that quickly and move past it as quickly as possible.
Have you had to harden and fortify that feeling and that understanding? Because getting to a place where you can truly embrace this idea of failure and it's okay. Because the issue is, if going into it, there's this weird balance and this fine line that you have to find. Like, when I start something, I have to be so determined and so committed to not quit and make it work. It's like making sure that I don't have a backup plan. Because if you have the backup plan, you're probably going to take it because it's going to get so hard. So how can we set ourselves and our mind up? How have you found it you're able to do that? Where, how do you really know if it's failure? It's like, have I done enough? Have I worked enough? Have I tweaked it enough? This doesn't really feel like failure yet, but how do you know, like, when you fail, oh, okay, this is okay though? How do you work so hard that you do everything possible not to fail, but when you do, you've convinced yourself it's okay?
Because you learn something. And I love that question, because every time that I've screwed up or I've failed at something, there's a moment, yes, where I absorb it and I'm like, oh, that sucks. And I turn inward and I take it personally, whatever it may be. But then I instantly tell myself, but what did I learn from this moment?
Yeah. You all have got the stuff. There's people that say, oh, it's never failure. It's just lessons to be learned, right?
And it's more than that. I mean, failure, the word in of itself.
It means it didn't work the way you wanted it to.
It means it didn't work the way I wanted to. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's let's come up with something different, and that's part of evolution. That's what you have to do.
Yeah. Back in the day, I would go run a 10K back when I used to be in shape and healthy, and I would run, and I'm like, oh, let me do this in under 60 minutes. Let me do it. Let me go run 6.2 in under 60 minutes. That's 10-minute miles. It's like, if I do that, that's a win. But what happens if I finish it in an hour and 3 minutes? Okay, it's failure based upon the goal, but you still did something well. So the question is, do I want to train better, eat better, prepare better, and go out and do it again to get on? So if it means enough to us, if we're purposeful enough, if we're passionate enough, we'll keep going and we'll beat it under an hour. Yeah, that's why sometimes the failure feels big and small, but you got to keep going and, I guess, fail forward, right? That's what you're saying.
Or maybe you just need a better pair of sneakers.
Oh, okay, that's good. We just had the world champion backyard ultra marathoner in. His name's Harvey Lewis. He ran. I don't know if you all saw it, but this guy's just incredible. He ran for 4.5 days. They have to do another loop of 4.167 miles every day, every 60 minutes. And he only slept for a total of 3 hours over 4.5 days. And he had to run another. That's
a really, really, really good pair of sneakers.
See, that's it. Yeah, he's sponsored by Newton Shoes and all this. I don't even know anything about him. So what about excellence means something to you, right? When we sent it out, hey, what's important? So the word excellence popped up somewhere. And your mission, it kind of mentioned that there's a dedication to excellence. What's that mean to you? What's excellence mean?
It's an ongoing build, I guess. So excellence is not achieved in one day. It's not honestly, in a lot of ways, can it be achieved in a lifetime? Right? Can excellence be achieved in a lifetime?
Can it?
I'm asking you, right?
Well,
Here, I wrote something down. I don't have my phone on me, but I break these notes. I have sales meetings, and I'll have 30 people that come to a training. And I had this thing yesterday, so I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have my phone with me. But it said, on the path to achieving excellence, greatness is possible. You could switch it around. On the path to achieving greatness, excellence is possible. But I think we're always in pursuit of it, to answer your question. And so if you're truly, in my world, if you're truly trying to pursue excellence and you really have this on what we think greatness is in all of our categories, I think excellence is capable, because I think a teacher in the past has told us that's an excellent performance. You wrote an excellent paper. It's like that really stood out. Greatness is different. there's not many people that achieve what we would say like, wow, that was a great performance.
And I think people don't necessarily remember excellence, but they remember greatness, right?
Yeah, and that's okay, right? Because I guess
okay.
excellence, the pursuit of excellence is how you get to greatness, I guess.
It goes back to that saying that people don't necessarily remember what you did for them, but they remember how you made them feel.
Well, isn't that true?
And
the best relationships, and even in business, the best accomplishments I've had in business is because I made people feel a certain way.
Mm.
So can I elaborate on that real quick with you, Mark?
Yeah,
because one thing that I've noticed, in order to be great and to perform at your best, you have to eradicate emotion. Business is a business. Your personal life is your personal life. You can't have emotion in business. And I'm frustrated with that simply because how do you eradicate emotion in your business and still have both a good customer experience, have a supportive team, support your team, and convey that you care?
I think we have misrepresented what emotion is. Emotion can be passion can become emotion. I think if someone would ask me the question like, hey, Mark, can you approach business decisions with emotion? My natural reaction would be no. But the reason why I would say that is because there needs to be some well thought out, principled, disciplined processes that go into big decision making. And if I leave myself exposed to momentarily making decisions based on how I feel in the moment, it's not going to go well.
Mm-hmm.
However, having emotions and strong feelings behind things, a lot of great things come from that. I think it's the emotional control. I think it's the emotional intelligence that's important in business, is what I've seen. And because if you put me in front of people and I start talking about my emotion and passion about what's possible in life, I'll get fired up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Put me in a meeting. I'll drop some 4-letter words. Right? I'll invoke some things that you're capable of, that you don't believe in yourself. That's emotions. But we have to be very intelligent about how we use those when we're making decisions, when we're dealing with these highly stressful situations. Because I think emotions placed the wrong place is going to create anxiety, and anxiety is concerned about something that hasn't happened yet.
Mm. So when you say there's no room for emotion, not you. So when the outside world says there's no room for emotion in business, what does that mean?
I think to them, they're asking the wrong question.
Yeah.
They're acting like it's a way you feel towards a significant other, or it's a way you feel when a friend does you wrong, or it's a way you feel when somebody didn't, you have a 30-day return policy and you go to some company and they're like, no, we're not taking it back because of this. And you feel like you're getting screwed over, or, we can't have those momentary emotions that don't apply is the issue. Mm-hmm. And so I do think there's places for good emotions and passions behind how you feel in business, but I don't think we can leave the big decisions dealing with tough situations. I don't think that we can leave those up to being dictated by an emotional reaction, an emotional feeling. I can be emotional around the purpose behind my company. I can be emotional about the difference I can make in people's lives. I can feel like this genuine emotion around humanity, about how what they're going through in life. I can have those. See, crying, that emotion is not, that they're asking the wrong question. When we're touched and have emotions about feelings in life, that's different. But you do have to make sure that you don't carry those over into, do I feel emotionally well enough today to get up and work 12 hours? If you ever ask yourself that question, I'm sorry, you're going to have some struggles in the world of entrepreneurship if you have too many of those days, because there's a lot of people relying on you. And it gets very lonely at the top. And when it's lonely at the top, you don't have the same, listen, guys, ladies, we don't have the same benefits when you're the person that the responsibility for the business and the big decisions lie at your feet on whether or not this thing is going to exist and thrive. You don't get the same benefits to be upset the same way, to be as emotional the same way, to have feelings all the same times. We just don't get to have those. We don't.
No. And there's a lot of great books out there too that actually talk about this very topic in business for entrepreneurs that
Do you know
allow
one
us-
of them? Because they probably speak to it better than I do.
Yeah, I mean, the two that come to my mind that really help bring a lot of what we actually discussed on this call today, and particularly that come to mind. One would be Good to Great, right?
It's good. It's a good book.
That talks a lot about being able to take risk and chances, and then also brings it into a real life perspective. And then another one is Sitting at the Table.
Never
Danny
read that
Meyer,
one.
Meyer, excuse me. And that one actually talks specifically around the restaurant space and hospitality. And I think that one's great because it brings to light how important it is for us to have, I use the word empathy, and understanding that setting up a business really, especially in the restaurant space, is just as difficult, what we kind of touched on very lightly in the beginning, of setting up a tech company, right? Because you go through the same trials and tribulations, right? The who's, the what's, the whens, the whys, the wheres, and the now, right? And so there are those books. I bring those two to mind because those are the two that I have finished more recently. But I encourage people that, may not necessarily have the human support, but they can certainly access. There's a ton of books out there, readings that actually help bring a lot of what we experience as entrepreneurs to life, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I know I want to make sure that I kind of highlight is, as an entrepreneur, especially if it's something you've never done, right? You're tackling on this challenge, you're doing what nobody else wants to do, you're pioneering, you're taking that path that nobody's been down. You think that there is not enough resources or support out there for you because it's so challenging that I think it's absolutely normal and natural for you to immediately think, well, I must be at this alone, right? I must be doing this by myself. And it's
But
so
in the
important.
beginning, you are, right?
And in the beginning.
And you have to
in
be
the
resourceful.
beginning,
Yeah.
Absolutely. In the beginning, for sure, you are, you are going, upstream without a paddle, right? And it's not until you realize that there's actually a lot of resources out there, whether it's in your state, your county, or your country, that will help get you where you want to go. It's a matter of, even when time is of the essence and there's not a lot of time because you're focusing on building this concept out, this idea out, taking the additional time to research kind of what I like to call is kind of stick your head above the surface a little bit, that water that you're treading in, and look and see outwardly about what you can do to help yourself get to where you're going. Because again, in the beginning, as much as you feel alone, the actuality is you are alone in your pursuit because you're the person that determined you want to take this risk. You're the person that determined you want to do this challenge, right?
And you can quit anytime you want.
So you need to own that, right? You need
It'd
to
be
own
much
that.
easier to quit.
Wouldn't it? So too, real quick, when you asked me the question about the emotions, what's your feeling about that, right? Because there's something inside you're like, there has to be a place where emotions are allowed. Is that a good statement? Is that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason why I bring emotion, the topic of emotion, into the conversation is simply because I consider myself a highly sensitive person. And I'm a people person. I like conversation. I like allowing people to feel really good.
Is that people pleaser? Did you miss the pleaser part?
No.
Okay.
The old me,
okay.
Mark, the old Courtney definitely was a people pleaser. And it wasn't until I started to gain and acquire that thick entrepreneurial skin and mindset to where what matters, what's important, what am I prioritizing, where do I want to go, where do I see the company, et cetera, where then I told myself, now the emotional piece is both personal in terms of protecting my emotional space and how I feel in any particular moment, and my attachment emotionally to the company. You know, as Cassie said, it very much is like a baby, and you have to feed it and take care of it and make sure it's healthy to allow it to grow. And so that's what I mean when the emotional piece. And
maybe you all have the benefit. Yeah. So here's maybe you all have the benefit that being sisters doing this together, and then twins on top of it, there's just this built-in trust and commitment to each other. I'm assuming that you can say anything, be anything, and that's not going to leave your safe private space. There's massive trust.
Massive trust and massive, I mean, her and I, we challenge each other.
Yeah.
We do. We have our trials and tribulations, and we do, whether you want to call it disagreements. And sometimes it's like an all-out war. We have to agree to disagree, Mark, to be honest with you. But that's the sibling piece to it. But at the end of the day, no matter what was said or what was done, we had the same goal in mind. We had the same mission in mind, and that never changes.
You're going to find when you all get to this place where I don't know when it's going to be. It could be in 6 months, you raise a ton of money. Could be 6 years. Could be a moment if you're fortunate enough to live long lives. You're going to look back, and I believe from spending time with you two today, most entrepreneurs don't get to go along this path with someone that you two have in each other. Maybe you have a partner in the beginning, it's 50-50, but it's not the same as you two being together. You're going to look back and reflect, and you're going to really appreciate, beyond sisters, beyond twins, that you had that person to go through it with. That's an argument that I'd make. No matter how tough it gets, just don't quit. And even if your brain right now says you're not going to, there's more challenges ahead. If you don't raise that money, is it still worth it? Do we keep going? If you believe in it enough, you will. Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. I ask myself that question every day. I oftentimes, actually, it's a quote from, I don't know if you're familiar with the war movie Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I like those types of movies.
There's a moment, so there was a moment where one of the main characters had said, you know, Lord, please help me get just one more. Mm-hmm. And that quote resonates with me both professionally and personally, because, and not to bring religion or anything like that into the conversation.
You can bring it. I don't care. But everybody doesn't have to agree.
It's more or less behind those words are so much in terms of entrepreneurialism and the way I really go about my day to day. It's just one more day.
One more day, right?
One more sell. You know, one more meeting. You know, we can do this.
One more phone call.
One more, another pair of heels, because the pair that you had, you went through because you were just running pavements and going door to door. So that's to your point of just keeping at it and being alongside Cassie, or my sibling. Yeah. You're absolutely right in the sense that we're at an advantage, but I don't want people to misconstrue that and say, oh, it's because you're working with your sibling, it must be grand, this grandiose experience, when in reality it's not.
They'll misconstrue everything.
We know each other so well that it's almost, we go head to head, and whether it's left brain, right brain, she's this or that philosophical, let's bring it down here,
Yeah.
It is. It's bittersweet.
You two are special. Even if it becomes Fliptable plus 10, you're like, oh my God.
Plus one.
Do it. Whatever it is, whatever that thing is, if you all keep going with this attitude, with the perspective, with the how you're both dynamic in different ways, you can do big, big things. And that's why I say just don't quit. I mean, if it takes, too many people put a timeline on it. They put 3 years. No, if it takes 30, if you're that passionate about it, then let me see 30 years. Right, one day at a time. You two will do
that one more. Exactly.
That's what it is. I mean, it's that because there are tough days, and that's to share with everybody, guys. There's going to be tough days, but it is worth it.
It's totally worth it.
It's worth it. It's worth it because it is more freeing. This journey of it being up to you and the buck stops here, all you have to do is show some grit, determinism, and keep going, and it's worth it.
And truly the only thing that's in your way is yourself.
Oh, we could go deep so long. So there's so many things. I didn't get to all my notes, all my stuff. So give us a little wrap up here. People are going to yell at me. I'm 8 minutes late for a in one of these office buildings I own. I have to go extend the lease, so I got to go make money. Right? They're probably like, he's going to ignore us today, so I have to go to a different floor. But give me something in passing as we wrap up here about just about where you're at, 2023 going into 2024. What's on your mind? What are you going to do? What about the world? What about life? Make me smarter in the next 60 seconds.
Well, I got to say, pay attention to us, right? Pay attention to where we're going. And if you're a restaurant, understand that you're talking and you're hearing from two strong women who really want to make an impact in your community, in with your pain points. And we are here to listen. Okay. And this isn't just one more. Okay. This is just the beginning for us. And I'm really excited for where I see this company in 2024 and beyond. Okay. And as we do raise money, it's important that people understand who are listening that we're not going anywhere. Okay. We're going to continue to pick up the phone. We're going to continue to build this amazing product. I'm going to continue to build an amazing team. And I welcome anybody that wants to talk to me about it. And I welcome anybody that wants to challenge me about what we're going to do next. I say, I wrap up with, please serve me. Whatever you want to serve me. And I use that term, kind of pun intended, as we talk about the restaurant space. Because I'm ready to have that discussion. I'm ready to have that conversation. And I'm here to support exactly what I came to the table to support within the beginning. And that is the restaurant space. Because there's no solution out there right now, nor is there a team out there right now that I firmly believe is capable of doing what we're achieving.
Well, that's determination. How do you add on to that, huh?
Yeah. Thanks, Kassandra. I would say this, okay? So Mark, your podcast, the T&E, has been a significant driver in not only being motivated, but also because the content is so relatable, it makes me, to the point of it's lonely at the top, not feel so lonely. 6 months ago, and this is true story, 6 months ago, asked Cassie what I said. I said, one day we will be on The Necessary Entrepreneur.
There you go,
and
ladies.
Here we are.
Hey, this is just a thank you, but this journey is just to try to help people do this thing better, to try to have them, you said it, to make it relatable, to say, hey, listen, you all, there's a lot of us coming from this place. Nothing was given, nothing was handed except for an opportunity. And if there can be some folks that feel a little bit closer to where they are and who they are, rather than always having to see a Bill Gates and a Richard Branson and Oprah Winfrey, those people have done significant things. But most of us are never going to have an opportunity to really hear that story, to be at a dinner with them, to sit and have an open conversation. And that's what this is, to say, hey, y'all, whether we're in Vermont, whether we're in Texas, whether we're in Northern Kentucky, wherever we're at, there's a bunch of normal folks in these 350 million people, and anything's possible. But it's hard, so let's have some conversations on how we can all do this together and succeed and win at our little piece of this thing that we're doing. So kudos. We're so much better than we were 6 months ago. We're going to be way better than in 6 months than we are now. And it's just the story of business. This is just another example of entrepreneurship and doing something with the long game in mind. So thank you, too. I love being around smart ladies.
We appreciate it, Mark.
Anytime.
Yes.
And remember, you still owe us a tour of lovely Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. This is a booming, happening restaurant environment. You all know that.
Absolutely.
There's special things happening. I mean, Cincinnati consistently is top 5, top 10, and we're in Northern Kentucky. But the funny thing is that the Ohio River just really cuts through downtown Cincinnati. And if you walk to one of the offices outside of the studio here and look out the window, we're like sitting on top of Cincinnati, even though I'm in Northern Kentucky. So I might have this Kentucky accent and sound like I'm some Southern boy, but It's Midwest, y'all.
You're hybrid. You're hybrid.
Yeah, that's what we are. So thank you too. And I think tapping into what you're doing. I don't care what the business is. Your business happens to be called Fliptable Plus, and so it's special to have good people who have their head down and are determined to change your space of the world. And if there's enough of us doing it in all our categories, we're going to make the country better, make the world better, make our own lives better. So thank you for being you.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, off to sign a lease.
Exactly. Enjoy.
Thank you, ladies. All right, appreciate you.